Hello and welcome to the Corona Cast Comedy Show. Here with me, Deliso Chaponda. If you are tuning in for the first time, this is a show where I, Deliso Chaponda, speak to you, the people of YouTube, Instagram Live, Twitch, Facebook Live, wherever platform you may be watching me. I entertain you with jokes and comedy sprung from my brain because I can no longer perform for live audiences because of COVID. I do this in my kitchen or living room or whatever room I may be that night. Tonight's episode is a very different, slightly odd episode. As I revealed to those of you who tuned in yesterday, I've started to write a new 1 hour show, a new special, a new comedy hour of my best material. And when I do these things, I always seek big, fat themes, right? Big, fat, pretentious ideas which I explore through the comedy, right? I just saw Jenny Craddock say, "Where is the panda? The panda stumbled out drunk. I don't know if the panda will be back before the end of the show." But panda aside, I always try to talk about the human condition, right? I try to talk about the human condition. I try to talk about suffering. I try to talk about deep subjects. Now, some of you who have watched my past specials, such as What the African Said or Blah Blah Blacklist, which are on YouTube, may note that in said special, I talk about subjects such as geriatrics shitting on each other. What is that revealing about the human condition, you may ask? Or I do a joke about the 69 position. What is that referring to in the human condition? The truth is, it's hidden in the scaffolding. Even when I do penis jokes, they are very well considered, well analyzed. And I've got to tell you that my penis jokes are worse dissertations. In fact, if there are any university students watching, feel free to propose to your tutors that next year you write a thesis on Deliso Chaponda's use of knob gags in his comedy. And I will be available for an interview if any of you wishes to do this analysis. So, even though sometimes I end up going to crass places, shallow places, when I start writing a show, I have a big thing that I'm trying to examine. One or two big things. A few years ago, I did a show called Love Sucks, and the show was really about loneliness and self-reliance, right? What the African Said was sort of about fame, acclaim, and what it all means. And Blah Blah Blacklist was sort of about judging those who have gone before. Right? There's a lot more in them, but those are the big ideas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start talking about the big fat ideas, which may be in the next joke. Now, you've got to understand, there'll be some jokes, there'll be some ranting. I am playing with the ideas. I'm figuring it out. So I don't know what's going to happen, but you should know that this is a very experimental episode, which will either be interesting or horrific. If it's horrific, feel free to click away because I don't know what I'm doing. Before I get started at looking at the three big fat ideas for this episode, which are colonialism, a post-truth world, and who is to blame for the unthinkable. You see what I mean? Like big fat subjects. Before I get to them, I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. And then between each one, I will again take a look at the chat and we shall try to survive together. Okay. Hello to Barbara Harris. Good to have you here. Can you send me content via email? What do you mean, can you send me content? Do you mean, Barbara, requests for subjects to really make jokes of? Or do you mean your own jokes? Because I cannot look at your jokes. I cannot look at your art if that's the kind of content you mean. Because people who professionally do art, we hate it when people send us story ideas or they send us their own jokes, because even if we read it and we do something slightly similar, we could be accused of plagiarism. But if it's just a request, you can send an email. I mean, my preferred method is Instagram or Facebook, but feel free to email daliso@gmail.com. Please make this funny, Deliso. And the next time I do a joke from audience suggestions episode, I may do that. Okay, Also, my head is shiny. Yes, my head is shiny. The reason my head is shiny, Sam Marks, is you do not see it, but there are two giant lights. Two giant lights which are lighting me, which I ordered on Amazon, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to know that I'm probably not using them right? Because you're probably meant to have them at certain angles and certain meters away, but I know nothing about how to maximize using these professional studio lights. So I just point them at my face and I create a gleaming bulb of a head. So I hope some of you are enjoying my phosphorance. Hello to Deadpool O, who is the only person watching from Twitch. Very good to have a few Twitch people in addition to the Facebook and YouTube people. Robin Green says Barbara wants cam sex. I seriously doubt that she wants cam sex, though if she did, I would not regret it because I have not touched a human being in over 50 days. I can't be picky. I'm sure she just wants to send me a joke. Lauren Taylor, I'm glad you enjoy my comedy. So, let's get started in talking about big fat subjects which may be addressed in my new show. Okay? So, what got me thinking about talking about colonialism is because often in my shows in the past, I've talked about things like slavery, talked about white privilege, and sometimes I'll get a lot of anger, a lot of rage. People will either approach me after shows and say, why do you have to keep banging on about it, right? Why do you have to keep banging on it? I never did anything, right? You know, people who it's like, I understand, they feel like, I haven't done anything, I've been nice, why do you have to keep banging on about slavery? Why do you have to keep banging on about colonialism? Huh? And I can sympathize with them. This is not a direct analogy, but I, for instance, have dated many bruised women. Women who have dated lots of horrible bastards, right? And I have to live with them. I have to do the cleanup. Do you know what I mean? Like, the previous men have smashed up the house, left windows, painted graffiti, created all kinds of complexes, and then I am dating them now, and I'm having to deal with all of the pent-up resentment that all men who have ever been, and I'm like, hey, I never did this, but at the same time, I have to live in this house, and I know this is not a one-to-one example. In fact, all analogies are flawed because nothing is like another thing, but I fully understand why some white people or some people who are in other ways complicit in the things of the past will say, well, I had nothing to do with it, right? Also, other people say, well, why can't you get past it? Why can't you get past it? Also, it was so long ago. How can it be affecting it now? You know why? You know why you're poor in Africa? It's because of your own corruption. You know why you're poor in Africa? It's because of your own mismanagement. And they are partly right, but it's a very complicated mess. And it's such a complicated mess, which I've read so many books about, that I think it's worth me trying to untangle with comedy. So I am going to try to discuss colonialism. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. But Shez George says, not to be rude, but the only people talking about slaves is black people now. This is not necessarily true. I've heard many a white person discuss slavery, and just because people don't discuss it doesn't mean that it doesn't have ripple effects. So I started to think, how could I explain to you the complexities of colonialism, right? Because people always think it's the same everywhere. Of course it was different. There's so many different African countries. There's so many different places in the world that have been colonized. There's so many different colonizers, and it wasn't the same, right? So the actual colonialism wasn't the same, and then the far-reaching effects of it weren't the same. So how could I possibly explain it in a way that isn't boring? And I realized, some of you may realize, that a few days ago I did a joke, which wasn't even a joke. It was my honest belief that because of coronavirus, I've been stuck in this flat for so long that I'm going stir crazy, and I've seriously started considering invading my neighbors. My neighbors have a lovely flat. I've not seen the whole flat, but they've got a lovely flat. The entryway looks good. Their balcony looks good. And I've just realized that if I took over their flat, oh, at least I'd have some variety. I'd have access to so much more space. So I considered invading them, but I do not have the tools to invade them. So I've decided that I'm going to talk you through the different kinds of colonialism and the different far-reaching effects it could have in generations, using my neighbors as an example, ladies and gentlemen, as an example. Okay, here we go. So, Robin Green says, you wish somebody would make you their slave. We can arrange this. We can arrange this. I don't know what will be required, but I'll get some chains. I'll get some whips. Okay, so now, this is the apartment, right? So, this may be very boring, but I think it might be interesting. First kind of colonialism is settler colonialism, right? So this is where I look at my apartments, my neighbor's flat, and I'm like, hey, what if I just go settle in there? Let me just go put a flag in the middle of their flat while they're watching television and say, this is mine now, okay? And I bring all of my friends, right? So I just move in, and if they object, I kill them, right? Essentially, that's what settlement colonialism is. It's like you move to a place, you decide it's yours now, and you kill them, right? Or you threaten them. I could only do them if I have superior weaponry to them, right? So they might have a few cups and saucers and stuff like that, but I have superior weaponry, right? I have an arsenal of microphones. I have high technology, right? I have cameras. I have lighting, which I can whack them over the head with. So my superior weaponry means that they could not resist me if I choose to move in and just plant myself there. Now, settler colonialism, how does it still affect people in hundreds of years, right? What it usually is settler colonialism usually ends up being a very wealthy nation, because people have settled there, they've built up the society, and what you will often find is a very wealthy country. So this is where we look at America. That was settler colonialism. People moved in there, and then you go to Australia, again, settler colonialism, right? But 100 years from now, you will see a lot of wealth. The thing which you probably won't see is some of the initial people who used to live there, right? Because when you do settler colonialism, it's very inconvenient to have people who are already there, so you usually kill them. So I would tie up my neighbors, right? I would stab them repeatedly, right? And maybe once in a while I'll talk to them. Maybe I will, make an Oscar-winning movie every now and then about how beautiful their culture was. Maybe I'll use them as an ad on a cigarette pack or something like that. But generally, they're all gone, right? So I am wealthy, but the initial natives are gone. So that's usually settler colonialism. Okay, again, this feels like a lecture, trying to make it funny. As I said, I add jokes every time I talk about it, and eventually it's going to be smooth. Next kind is planter colonialism, right? Now, this is a case where I realized that my neighbors, they are growing amazing spinach, right? They are growing amazing, amazing tomatoes. And I've realized because of the coronavirus, I'm going to need to grow more food to make myself self-sufficient than I can grow alone. So I decide what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take over their land, right? I'm just going to go in there and say, look, I have superior weapons, right? I've got microphones. I've got lights. I could bash you on the head with them, but don't worry, I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do is you are now, forget your job. Forget what you think you do. What you do now is your job is to make as many spinach and tomato plants for me. Right? So essentially, it's when it's all about a cash crop, be it sugar, be it coffee, be it something like that. And sometimes there are not enough workers, right? Sometimes my poor neighbors are not got enough neighbors. So this is where I have to import some of my own neighbors, right? So what I'll sometimes do is I'll go to my other neighbors and I will make them slaves, or I will make what was her name or his name? Robin Green. I would make Robin Green, who volunteered to be a slave. Robin Green as a slave will be dragged and made to work their bathroom. They don't have fields, right? Where we're using everything in their flat to grow crops, right? So this is what is called planter colonialism. Now, how does this have effects in hundreds of years from now? Well, what will happen is, long after I'm long dead, right? They've been spending all their life creating tomatoes and potatoes, or whatever I ordered them to do, that their whole society is based on creating tomatoes and potatoes, which are sold to me and my friends. I determine the price. I determine the trade. They are entirely dependent on me. I hope this makes sense, right? So that's the second type. Don't worry, this isn't all lecture. There are only two more which I'm going to talk about. There are actually 20 different kinds of colonialism. But, everybody would start logging off if I went through all of them in one episode. I know some of you are thinking, how is this going to turn into a comedy show? I don't know either. These are just the big ideas which are in my head, which I want to talk about, right? So basically the problem is, this is actually true for a lot of African countries. They were turned into cash crop makers, and now they're entirely dependent on the market, and you can never be free if you are dependent on outsiders. Third kind. Now, this is the most common in African countries, not all African countries. This is a very common one. This is extractive colonialism, and I would say this is the most damaging. Now, this is a case where I look at my neighbors, and I say, look, they've got nice television, they've got nice couches, they've got nice stuff in their flat. Now, I don't really need to be in there. I just want their stuff, right? So if every now and then I send my people in there, I send my friends in there, or I go in there on missions and I just take their stuff. I don't care what state I leave their city in, right? I don't care what happens to their flat. I just want their stuff. Those potatoes I talk about, let me just rip them out of the ground, right? They'll have to deal with what's left. Everything, I don't care what's going on there. I just want their stuff. Now, the problem with this kind of colonialism is that the damage is that they exist just to supply me. And I don't care what state they're left in, right? I think the metaphor is falling apart here. I'll have to start talking about countries. So, if we go to a case of a country, like some African country, which was being used as an outpost, which was just sending stuff to the empire, when they kick out all of the colonists and they say, we're free now, a lot of these guys who decided they're free now, they were not clever enough to realize that, you know what was messed up? This entire system was messed up, because this system does not work about labor. It doesn't care about the laborers. All it cares about is the stuff which you're digging out of the ground, be it gold, be it oil, be it what. You only care about what you're taking. And instead of removing the system, what these new African leaders did, and this is where the corruption and stuff comes, they looked at this whole messed up situation and they said, you know what? Everything in this situation creates wealth and it sends it to England, or it creates wealth and it sends it to Belgium. I don't like that, but imagine it created wealth and sent it all to me. So they didn't change the system, they just put themselves at the top. I hope that made sense. So the problem was the system, because there are no evil people, there are only evil systems. Hello to Michaela Evans, and you are right, my neighbors, if they watch this show, they're going to try and move immediately. Sergeant Punk is scared and confused. This is my issue. These themes are too big to deal with comedy. But I just wanted to explain to you what I'm trying to discuss. Next, VTK. I have already performed many times with Ismo, if that is who you are talking about, who you mentioned the other day. Next up, we have missionary colonialism. This is the last one which I'm going to address in the first section. And this is not where I colonize your country. I colonize your your minds, right? So this is where I look at my neighbors, right? And I realize that they watch crap on Netflix, right? I realize that they talk in this gibberish Latin, gibberish language I don't understand. So I go in with my superior weaponry and I say, hey, you are not watching that stupid Tiger King anymore, right? It is wrong. You are a savage if you watch it. Instead, you're going to watch the shows which I tell you to watch. Here, watch Friends, right? And stop speaking that gibberish language. You're going to speak my language. And that's the one where you colonize their ideas and you make them feel that everything they love is inferior. And this continues to create self-hatred. Okay, that's all of the colonialization section. These are the things which I'm going to somehow break up into little bits and in a less confusing way in my next show try to talk about. So if you have any questions, if I've confused you in some way, or if you are my neighbors and you're terrified, please tell me about it. Sam Marks, you bought Barely Legal, my Barely Legal DVD. Now that's a DVD I did years and years and years ago. I was significantly thinner. And I wasn't yet as good a comedian as I am now, but there are some extremely funny bits in it. The funniest routine in it, I think, is there was a routine about the Zimbabwean prophet Hubert Angel, which I thought was very funny and got his followers very angry with me. I hope you enjoy that DVD. Sam Marks, I don't know where you got it because I took it off all platforms because I used a few jokes of it in What the African Said, possibly eBay. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, hello. Good. Excellent. You cultivate black mold, greater cabbages and tomatoes. I've got this. Excellent. Actually, most people don't seem confused. This is good. Please continue being a stand-up comedian. I will definitely continue being a stand-up comedian. Tricky fun. I'll tell you what's interesting is around 10 years ago, I had many options, right? You know, I mean, like 20 years ago, I decided to start trying comedy and I had a lot of skills. You know, I mean, I was good at math. I was scientific. I had a lot of possibilities of what I could do, but I've been a comedian so long, it's all I know how to do now. So I have no choice but to keep doing comedy. So do not worry, Tricky Fun. I am going to keep doing jokes. And Rani Angriani is asking me to check my inbox. I may forget. So please do message me. What did you want to ask in my inbox? Why don't you just ask me directly right now? Rani Angriani. Hello, EFC Alex 39. Good to have you here, people of Twitch. Good. Maybe down the line, says Harry Araka, start a podcast. I have already done 2 podcasts in my time, Harry Araka. One, all the episodes are back. It's called Firing Blanks, which was a podcast I did with another comedian. And actually, the first 20 or so episodes of the CoronaCast comedy show were also a podcast. But it took a lot of editing, and I realized that on average, it was getting around 50 people a day listening to it, and it wasn't worth the extra effort because when I add up Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and all of the different things, the video one is getting around 2,000 people a day, and so I couldn't really justify putting in an extra hour of effort for an extra 50 people. But maybe one day I will. What is my drink, says Jenny Craddock? I'm drinking coffee. Okay, next big theme, ladies and gentlemen, which I shall try to explore. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. Even when I was in that colonialism nest of ideas, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to turn this into a comedy show because I'm trying to dilute like 3 or 4 gigantic books which I have read into something that is understandable. And anyway, and not like snooze inducing. Okay, next thing which I'm going to explore in this next show, and don't worry, there'll be no gags, of course. There'll be jokes about sex. There'll be jokes about fingering. I always have a fingering joke in every show, just so you know. At least one. Boom! Okay, here we go. So, the other thing is a lot of people are talking about how we are living in a post-truth time, right? This is not just Trump. He's just one person who people think is a good example of it. And that's that idea that nowadays, the people who are becoming popular, the people who are winning political races around the world, has nothing to do with facts and evidence, right? Because they just, if somebody says something untrue, they just say it again. They just say it again. They just say it again. And this is partly fueled by the internet, because the internet is oddly not what you'd think. You'd think the internet is useful in that if somebody says a fact, you can fact check it. But the weird thing about the internet is you can find anything on the internet, right? You can find proof to prove whatever side you decide to be on, right? There is nothing that is not on the internet. You can decide, you know what? I think squirrels run the world. I guarantee you, you will find someone in some chat room who is already got this view and will prove it to you, right? And it allows people to just shape their reality based on the articles which they choose, which they think justifies what they believe, right? I'm sure we've all got that friend. I've got a friend who believes in all these conspiracy theories, right? And he'll come to me and say, yeah, 5G is the source of the coronavirus. And I'll be like, dude, what's the proof of this? It makes no sense. Like, how is a technology of a phone creating coronavirus? Did 4G create SARS or something like that? It doesn't make any sense. How is technology going into our bodies? This doesn't make any sense. It's like, look. You don't believe it's true? Check this. Watch this video. Watch this. And the video he will show me is some lecturer or some crackpot explaining it, right? And I'm like, why is this person the source of truth? He's just some man talking. I could find someone else with the other view and put the camera on then. Why is he the source of all truth? The other one they'll do is they'll play something like Alexa. There was one thing where he said a conspiracy theory where they had Alexa, the Amazon Alexa saying something, and they're like, you see, and I'm like, well, why is Alexa the source of all truth? The basic way of finding out evidence, like, researching something, looking for corroborating evidence, seems to be less and less popular, right? It's so odd. You just say something and you say it again and again and again until people believe you. And it's very worrying, because this is the kind of thing which Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda merchant, he said that a lie told once is a lie, but a lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. And it's so true. Consider Twitter. If you state anything about anybody else and you can get 1,000 likes, it becomes truth, right? Doesn't have to be true. You could just say, my neighbor is beating his wife. And if enough people agree with me, everyone's going to think my neighbor's beating his wife. I don't understand. So people say we're living in a post-truth world where everything can be fabricated because we've got enough special effects to make a fake version of everything. So why should you believe anything? Because nobody is trustworthy. Newspapers are full of crap. Science books are full of crap. Maybe the world is flat. Maybe vaccines are wrong. Who can you trust? All of these things, the idea of a post-truth world, is something which I want to deal with in comedy. Because I've noticed that people use it in politics. But could you use post-truth logic in any other place? Could you use it as your job? Let's say your boss calls you in and says, we've been looking at your sales figures and they're very low. So we're going to have to let you go. And you're going to say, it doesn't matter what the statistics say. I'm your best. I'm the best salesperson you have. No. According to the statistics, you're not productive at all. In fact, you come to work late, you sleep on the job, we're firing you. No. I am the best. I am the best salesperson. You said you couldn't just say it 100 times and eventually they believe you. Could you use it in any other respect? Could you use it in the bedroom? Could you use post-truth logic, right? Girlfriend's very upset, right? She's like, oh my God, you're so selfish in bed. I haven't had an orgasm in years. This is totally unacceptable. I'm gonna dump you. What are you talking about? I am the greatest lover on the planet. I gave you multiple orgasms yesterday. You did not give me multiple orgasms yesterday, she would say to you. I was there. You touched me in a way that you thought was giving pleasure, was giving me pain, right? It was not enjoyable at all. No. I'm the greatest lover there's ever been. You weren't in pain. You were having multiple orgasms. No, I told you. And you repeated 1,000 times. And so she said, okay, I guess I was having multiple orgasms. It doesn't work. Doesn't work in life. Doesn't work in love. Doesn't work at job. But somehow people use it in politics. Just say it again. Say it again. Eventually they'll believe me. It's very troubling. Post-truth world. I don't know how I'm going to make it funny. But it's something I want to talk about because it worries me. Okay, we're going to move on to the final subject I'm going to be trying to write about, but let me take a look at the chat. Okay, so, hi, JHD says, do I see messages from YouTube? Yes, I do. I just saw your message. And what coffee is this? This is a, what is it? I think it's an Ethiopian coffee. It's an Ethiopian brown coffee, which I made, I made a filter. I have one of those, I don't know what you call them. A colander? No, not a colander. But like, I've lost my words and now I'm just... Essentially, I put the ground coffee and then the hot water and then I leave it to filter. I make coffee. Everyone knows how to make coffee. I just don't know the terms. Excellent. And let's see. Tricky Fun has a question. In a show, what percentage would I say is prepared and how much is improv? So, depends what you mean as a show. If you mean like a show, a proper show, like if you watch What the African Said, if you watch Blah Blah Blacklist, one of my tour shows, that is 95% written, 5% improv when I interact with the crowds. If you're talking about this Corona cast where I'm just talking to you, it's probably 60% written, 40% improvised because I just write roughly what I'm going to talk about, right? And if you came to watch me in a comedy club, it's probably 80% written, 20% improvised because, again, when I'm in a comedy club, I allow myself to riff and improvise because sometimes the funniest things happen in the moment. But definitely more written than improvised because you can't be as brilliant making stuff up on the spot. Now, there are some comedians who claim that they make it all up on the spot, but if you watch them enough, you will realize that even they have got methods and they are doing certain things. I mean, the best improvisers still are improvising some of it, but they're not improvising some of it. Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? Cafetiere, you're right, Chris Zarkadakis. It's a cafetiere. Goodbye, Kitchen Panda. We shall miss you. No, the Kitchen Panda. I just forgot to put out the panda. That's the honest truth. I forgot the panda. The panda is still on the. The panda is on the. Is on the set from yesterday because yesterday I performed. You know what? Why don't we resurrect the panda? Bring the panda back. Here's a panda. Panda's happy to be in the show. Panda felt left out not being part of the show. Here is the panda. And the panda is going to stay over here for the rest of the show looking at the coffee. Okay? So many people are saying, where's the panda? Where's the panda? And then Sergeant Punk said, imagine if I said to you last, we didn't have sex yesterday, but we did. So try Jedi logic. I wonder if Jedis ever do that in sex. You're like, you had an orgasm. You did have an orgasm. You did have an orgasm. That is why people think Anakin Skywalker was a better lover than he really was. Okay. Okay, excellent. Good. Glad you enjoyed it. It's very chill vibe because I improvise a lot of it. Awesome. You finished my 1 hour gig on YouTube and you jumped into my live. Thank you, Gurgus. Tusculus, you're very, very welcome here. This is less formed, less well written, but on the way to, this is how I shape shows. So you are watching the first steps of the sequel to Blah Blah Blacklist. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, final subject which I'm going to try to talk about, which you'll understand why it's on my mind, is I'm going to try and talk about the things we blame the impossible or the unthinkable on. So stuff like, when there's a school shooting and it's so horrific that little kids could go and shoot other little kids, and people start saying people are desperate to blame something, right? And this is when you get people blaming video games, right? I've never understood it. Video games will brainwash me and make me do stuff. When I was a little kid, I used to watch Frogger, which is a game where a frog is trying to cross the road and trying to skip around all of the traffic. I don't try to bounce around traffic because I played that video game lots of times. I've never understood that thing that people think that but I understand it's something horrific. You're trying to understand where it came from. Violent video games, of course, is one of the places people goes, right? Other thing that people blame, which is interesting, is people blame music, right? Every kind of music at some point has probably been blamed, right? Like devil music, rap has been blamed. Rap lyrics is making these people go crazy, right? Heavy metal is blamed, like all sorts of things, or rape, horrific crime blamed on, it's cause of the lyrics, the objectifying lyrics. It's all because of like the movies which have half naked women in them. We try to explain things which are unthinkable, things which are horrific in weird ways. And this is currently something we are all having to grapple with, because the coronavirus has caused such ripples, has made so many of our lives and livelihood disappear. And a lot of people are like, what do we blame the coronavirus on? Is it because of the bats? Is it because of people eating bats in China? Is it because of the bats? Even though there's not been direct proof yet about it coming from the bat, a lot of people are jumping on it's the bats. Other people are like, no, it's the 5G. Of course, it's the 5G. People are burning masts of 5G, blaming the phones. Why is it the phones? Huh? Why isn't it Bluetooth? Maybe it was Bluetooth. Huh? Maybe it was microwave. If it could be 5G, it could be anything, right? Maybe it's radio wave. Maybe it's all the radios that have been building up, gradually creating the coronavirus. People have all of these theories. Some people blame God. It's because of God. God is angry with us because we have stopped worshiping God enough. Other people blame the devil. Some people blame God and the devil at the same time. And I'm like, how are they working together? Aren't they trying to oppose each other? So many things which people blame. I am the one who've come to tell you that the one thing which people haven't blamed coronavirus on is actually the right thing, right? Because you might not know this. Yes, video games are not to blame for violence, right? Yes, video games are not to blame for school violence and school shootings. And yes, rock music is not to blame for school shootings and violence. However, video games and music are to blame for creating the coronavirus. Boom! Changing the way you look at the world. Think of it this way. Chamber music. Yeah, not heavy metal. Chamber music, right? With the violins and so on. Chamber music seems calming, but think about it. It's chamber music. It happens in a chamber, in isolation. Chamber music has gradually been warping all of us and making us have to live in a chamber. It's to blame for the coronavirus, right? Also, ladies and gentlemen, video games, right? Video games have created the coronavirus, specifically Minecraft. Draw a coronavirus inside Minecraft and you're going to see what happens. You're going to draw the coronavirus and you will advance to the final level, because all Minecraft has been trying to do for the last 100 years is create the coronavirus. Did I say Minecraft? I didn't want to say Minecraft. What did I want to say? I want to say Minecraft it is. No, Minesweeper. I was thinking of Minesweeper, but Minecraft works just as well. Because which is the one which you click and it creates a bomb? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Either Minecraft or Minesweeper is to blame. So, blame and who we blame for the unthinkable is going to be the third thing which I'm grappling with. Don't know what my process is. I read lots of books. I talk to myself. I write jokes around the subjects, and eventually the good ones start to bubble to the top. So in the next month, on the Corona Cast, you may hear a lot of jokes about colonialism, or a lot of jokes about post-truthness, or a lot of jokes about blame. In fact, some of you have already seen that I've already been doing quite a lot of jokes about blame. It was because I was already gestating the idea of writing this new show. All that stuff about the witches and witch trials and mass hysteria, all of that was pieces of what will end up being the next show. So welcome to The Path. Sergeant Punk says this man is going insane. I know several people who would say I have been insane for a long time. And I will end on a quote. I believe it's Neil Gaiman, right? He said something like, his insanity keeps him sane. Yeah, I think Neil Gaiman said his insanity keeps him sane. And I think I will say the same is true for me. I am insane, but my insanity keeps me sane. I'm going to be here every day doing the Corona Cast. If you want to support the Corona Cast, feel free to go give me a little donation. Very, very appreciated. It's kofi.com/Daliso Chaponda. Also, you can become a patron. Also, I'm looking into things like I'm going to set up a Cameo, where Cameo is a thing where I can wish happy birthday to people, or I can do jokes on command. I don't know actually what I'm going to do, but I'm going to find ways to monetize my brain so that I can pay my rent over the next few days. So that's all coming your way. Also, after this is over, in around half an hour, so let's say 10:30 BST, I am going to be on Twitch. I'm going to be on Twitch playing a video game, having a chat. It won't be Minesweeper because I don't trust that thing, right? Created coronavirus, right? But I'm going to be on Twitch, twitch.tv/Daliso Chaponda, playing a video game. If you want to chat, if you've never watched anyone play a video game on Twitch, it's very different. I only started doing it this month, and it's very interesting in a weird kind of calming way. Feel free to stop by, say hello. This has been the Chronicast. Have a lovely night. I know it was an odd episode, but we're experimenting, people. Ciao, and see you.